Welcome to another lekker technical episode of the Professional Plumber Podcast with myself, Willem, Klopper, and my co-host, Mr. Richard Bailie. Richard, a lekker welcome to you as well, and thank you again for joining me.
Thanks, Willem. It's always a pleasure, and we try and get these things done as nicely and efficiently as possible. So it's another different, slightly different format this morning, which is going to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be lekker.
Listen, just before we started recording, I had a look at some of the things that you sent me and some of the video clips and some of the images that you sent me. And I think our audience and our viewers and our listeners are in for a bit of an interesting information that we're going to share with them today. So I agree with you, Richard, that this episode is going to take on a different format, slightly different format than the usual episodes that we do together. We're going to do a bit of a case study in this episode. And for a lack of better terms, we're going to call it a case study part 1, and we'll follow it up with a few other case studies or continue with this one if possible. But Richard, I think let's just quickly cross over to a quick ad break for our listeners and our viewers. Please stay tuned. These ad breaks, these advertisements are for your benefit and for your interest. Richard and I will be back right after these.
Are you having questions about the Plumbing Industry Registration Board and the plumbing industry in South Africa? Well, then join us on the couch and in conversation with the industry experts to answer all your lingering questions about the plumbing industry. The PIRB remains committed to ensuring open and consistent communication within the plumbing industry. So, be part of the conversation. Send us your questions on email at communications@pirb.co.za or on WhatsApp on 079 833 6930. Become a part of the conversation today. Hashtag on the couch. Hashtag PIRB.
Welcome back to this technically orientated episode of the Professional Plumber Podcast with myself, Willem Klopper, and my co-host, Richard Bailie. Richard, in our introduction and our welcome, we did say that today's episode is going to be slightly different than all of the others. I did mention that it is going to be a case study that we're going to have a look at. What do we have today, Richard? What do you have for us for today?
Willem, when somebody comes to me and says, give us a case study of issues. What do you choose? So, but anyway, I came across this one in about 2020, I think 2020 or 2021, and it struck me as something. Look, it was a geyser replacement. In other words, so just picture this. It's a beautiful home. It's in an estate, a beautiful secure estate, probably talking about a 6 million rand home in Cape Town. So that's the sort of home that we're talking about. And it was a geyser replacement. So there was an existing geyser in there before. And it burst and it needed to be replaced. So just bear that in mind. And the installation beforehand was not like this. So this was done for this installation, what we're about to see. So the geyser was replaced, a certificate of compliance was issued, and everything was hunky-dory. And of course, the homeowner was totally unaware. I mean, the homeowner doesn't go into the roof space to check these things. And I must, in all fairness, just say this, that the issuer of the certificate was also not aware of this. It was his company and his plumber, but obviously the installer just conveniently failed to show him this part of it. So and you'll see what I mean. So we can have a look at the video, I think.
It goes to show, just before you play that video, it goes to show the accountability when you sign off a COC and you don't know what you're signing for, ne? Just goes to show.
And the funny thing about this, sorry, Willem. The funny thing about this particular one is that you'll notice that the geyser installation itself, for all intents and purposes, I'm not focusing on that, is not bad. It's pretty good. So one could have a desktop audit and have your installer come back to you and say, okay, have a look at this. Here's 7 pictures of the geyser installation. And it looks good. It's like, fine, okay, 100%, I'll include that in non-compliance, and I'll include that, and all good. But it's just one of those fluke instances where an audit revealed this.
Listen, Richard, you said some things to bear in mind. Number one, it was a geyser that burst. It isn't quite it's not a shack or something like that. It's a proper, it's a proper built construction in a proper, how can I put it, a more formalized section of town or city for that matter. Those things to bear in mind. Geyser that burst, it was a geyser replacement. So there's something else that I want to say. As I may be mistaken, but isn't one of the policies to say that you either leave it the same condition as what it was before the damage, or you leave it in a better condition when you leave?
There isn't. So there isn't. Just to be clear, from a geyser installation perspective, there isn't a specific instruction to the installer to leave it in any kind of condition. Okay. Just bear with me. The standard does say that, and we're talking about SANS 10254, which is the geyser installation standard. So when you work on a geyser, you are subject to that standard, and it does say that that when you repair, replace, maintain, etc., a geyser or an installation or part of an installation, that you shall bring the entire installation up to this standard, the most current standard. So it says, yes, it has got to be up to scratch, with one proviso, and that is that if there are any pre-existing conditions of non-compliance that you are unable to fix, that you must bring that to the attention of the homeowner in writing. So the word pre-existing means that it was there before you got there, and you didn't cause it. So you can't go in and create more problems. You can be alerted to see the problem and say, oh goodness, Mrs. Jones, did you know that this and this was a thing? And that's one story. But you cannot make it worse. So not in so many words as you described, but 100% right. That is exactly right, yeah.
The principle. But okay, Richard, so you mentioned that you've got a little bit of a video clip that you want to share with us. If you don't mind, you can share it with us quickly.
So guys, here's a nice little one that I'm just looking at right now. 200 litre heat tech in the ceiling. Nice house. It's open, there's no lagging, but he has noted that. Yeah, it looks pretty okay. There's vacuum breaker. TP discharge is 28mm, 45-degree bends. That support looks a bit dodge. That might be a bit dodge. He's got a nice new valve on. There is a shut off, although it's an old one, but that sort of thing. Off it goes. I don't know if you can call that a clip, but everything looks reasonably okay, right? Sort of a 85-90%. Oh wait, no, what's this? See this truss that the geyser is supported by? This one? Oh, what's this we have here? Oops. Wait, gets better. Oops. Oops. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about all you can say about that is, yeah, broer. I mean, Richard, what how do you cut away a piece of a trust like that? I mean, you compromise the strength of that thing and the support that it gives to the roof. I don't know, you're the expert. What can we learn from this video?
Look, and the funny thing about that video is that you can still see the pieces of wood that were cut out and the sawdust. So, it's what does one say? I mean, but let's come back to sort of reality and say, what does one learn from this? And I want to say that even with best intentions, the issuer of the CSC, the qualified registered plumber that owns this business, did it with the best intentions. In fact, I know him. And I'm going to tell you, he'll never issue a CSC on the back of that. So even with the best intentions, it just brings to light and brings it to light, I guess, how important supervision is. Proper supervision. And we all make mistakes, and we all do something and then stop and think and say, oh my goodness, what have I just done? And let me just try and cover it up. We all do that. It's a human nature thing. So, but from a supervision and a keeping a thumb on the pulse, so to speak, perspective, I suppose it just brings to light how important that is, in the bigger picture. And my only sort of internal explanation for it would have been, because we need to ask the question, what is going through the mind of the person who takes out a saw and cuts 4 trusses out of a roof, of a home's roof. So what is going through that person's mind? And my only logical explanation is that he had been drilled and drilled and drilled by his boss to tell him that make sure that the drip tray overflow has got a fall. Make sure it's straight. Make sure it's got a fall at all costs. Do what you have to do to make that get a fall. So, and this is quite literally, and I think that's what it was, Willem. I think, well, there was a realization that you got, okay, now I need to get my drip tray overflow in, which is sometimes the last thing one does in an installation. And you realize that you haven't got a fall. And what do? So instead of backtracking and making the correct decision to lift the geyser, let's lift the entire installation higher so that we can get this pipe on top of the trusses. I think there was probably some time pressure. Maybe it was a Friday. I don't know, dude. So
that slight bit of a lack of foresight, no?
Yeah, lack of foresight. And we, it is quite amusing because it's so blatant in hindsight. But when you're doing it and you're in and you're sweating and you're under time pressure and you haven't paid rent and so on, the people make funny decisions. And this is where also I think the lack of training comes in, the lack of exposure to proper, correct training and logical sort of explanation about things. Because the way to rectify lack of a fall on a geyser drip tray overflow pipe is to lift the geyser, and the time to do that is before you put the geyser in the tray. And if you had thought about it just quietly, given yourself 2 minutes to think about it while I was putting this tray on the timber supports, because it's a brand new tray and brand new overflow, so wasn't there. They took the old tray out and they put a new one on. So if he had given himself 2 minutes just to think about that, he could have lifted it up quite easily and had that fall brilliantly done. As it is now, I don't know. I mean, obviously this was brought to the attention of the homeowner. It's one of those instances where when we audit, we don't divulge any details to the homeowner whatsoever. It's not their business. It's between the PIRB and the installer. However, in a case like this, we don't go and badmouth people, but we have to alert the homeowner to this, because especially one of those trusses that was cut supported the geyser, was one of the trusses that was supporting a 200-litre geyser right there. So it was a dangerous situation in my estimation. And I don't know what it cost to rectify that. I have no idea. But it would have cost a lot more than just lifting a geyser.
Richard, we're going to get back to what it cost and rectifying it, etc. just now. But I think let's cross over to a quick ad break. To our listeners and our viewers, please do stay tuned. Again, these ad breaks are, or these advertisements are for your interest and for your benefit. Have a look at them, have a listen to them. Richard and I will be back right after this.
South African plumbers, this one's for you. Discover the Master Plumber magazine, your go-to source for SA plumbing. Available now on the app Plumber for Android. Stay updated with the latest in SA plumbing. The Master Plumber magazine, your South African plumbing companion. Download now from the Android App Store.
Welcome back to this technically orientated episode of the Professional Plumber Podcast with myself, Willem, Klopper, and Richard Bailie. Now, in this episode, we're doing a bit of a case study, and it was one of those things that Richard, or in his capacity as an auditor or an inspector for IOPSA, has come across a geyser replacement in a roof. Basically, it was like Richard explained in the video clip that you saw earlier in this episode. It was an 80% sort of all good installation done until we saw the trusses having been cut away. Richard, just before we went into that ad break, you mentioned that you couldn't imagine yourself what it would cost to go and fix and repair that. Those trusses that were cut away like that. And you also mentioned something to me that stood out to me. It was that those trusses that were cut out, especially one of them, was one of the trusses that actually supports that 250-litre geyser. As if that's not dangerous in itself. The fact that, I mean, what is that thing? It's basically 250 kilograms when it's filled up. But at the same time, don't those trusses that were cut away, don't they also support the actual roof structure?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The geyser was 200 litre.
200.
Yeah, total weight with that thing, the geyser itself, plus that's 250, 280 kilograms, plus me walking around in the roof, plus, you've got to make sure these things are serviceable things. People need to stand. So that's another 100 kilograms. So now you're talking half a ton, in the roof, or close to it, and you can't. So, but yes, it absolutely supports the roof structure. Willem, things like roofs and timber supports and that sort of thing, it's out of our expertise. I mean, we've got eyes and we've got common sense, so we can see things like this. But it falls in an engineering specification. There are very specific weights that roofs are designed to carry per square meter, and in many, if not most cases, geysers require the addition of timber and extra struts and supports, etc., like that. And in this case, it's actually been removed. So the simple answer is that yes, it absolutely does support the roof. It can never be construed as okay. Never. It's not okay. And the funny thing about it is, Willem, you won't believe me, but it's actually not that uncommon that we see roof structures being totally cut away to fit geysers in. So I did a little inspection for my nephew, in fact, about 3 weeks ago, and he was busy buying a home. So I went to the home and I did a quick little run through, and just to see if there was anything plumbing wise that he should be concerned about, because he was going to receive a certificate of compliance from a plumber to say that the plumbing's hunky-dory. So I said, okay, well, let's just do the exercise. I'll check it out and then see how that compares to the COC you receive. So I came across in his ceiling, let's not talk about anything else in his home, but in his ceiling, we came across that the geyser had been installed through a trapdoor. And the only way in which that geyser could have enough space to sit in the roof space was to cut. Now you've got a bottom cord, and you've got two top cords that make a triangle, and then you've got I don't even know what they call, braces or whatever. 3 of those braces had been cut away completely. In fact, I think it was actually top cords or braces or both that had been cut away, removed completely, 3 in a row, boom, boom, boom. And it had been like that for 10 years with a geyser there. So you say to yourself, okay, well, it's not gonna, you can see with the pictures here. It doesn't make it very, very clear, but the pictures do show clean cuts, geysers that were sitting in the way of where the truss is supposed to be. So you say to yourself, okay, well, what's the difference? Because it's been sitting there for 10 years. Well, I'm not going to make that call. The difference is it's a truss that has been designed, and you cannot cut trusses. You just can't do it.
It serves a purpose. Richard, quite some time ago, about a month or 2 ago, you shared with me some photos of a geyser. I think it was also a 200-liter geyser that fell through the roof, the ceiling, on top of a couch that was in a living room in front of a TV, right? And it was because the support wasn't strong enough for the weight of and the plumber didn't make provision for that extra support, that extra strength of support, right? Now, the first thing that goes through my mind is I've got a young daughter, a 6-year-old. If she had sat in front of that TV on that couch at the moment that 250 kilogram weight came through that ceiling, what do you think? What would have happened to her? It's a fatality.
It is.
It's a fatality. Now, you can imagine that was with those trusses in place, but just not the extra additional strength being put in. In this instance, the trusses have been cut away. I mean, at some places, completely, right through to the ceiling board, what I saw in that video clip.
Yes.
In
the pictures of a different ceiling, the pictures will show the same. Trusses that have been cut away, not notched out, gone. So that's your structural integrity gone.
I mean, let's talk about this. Was this purely the installer's fault?
So I chose these 2 sets, the video and the set of pictures, because each one has got a different answer. The video, 100%. That is installer fault. As we've already explored and explained, they could have rectified or avoided that. The set of pictures, not so much. Although it is the installer's fault for not alerting anybody to the danger of what has had to be done or was done before, who knows. But so there's a fault there. The installer is not blameless. Let's be clear. However, at which point do you start to look at an architect that designed this block of flats and then instructed the plumbers to install the geysers in the roof spaces? At some point, do you think he might have thought to himself to see whether or not there was enough room or space in the roof space in order to put a geyser in, not only to put it in and build around it, which is often the best famous practice, but to be able to remove it later and replace it easily and properly. So we as installers, yes, we are to blame, but often we are boxed into a corner, and it goes to show how I want to say that the trade of plumbing is not taken seriously in this country. And there's no provision made, or there's very little thought given to the infrastructure that has to form part of the plumbing system, and especially by designers. You will find time after time that a home or a block of flats has been designed aesthetically beautiful, and the designer and the architect have colluded, and they've said, this is what we want. And then they give it out for quoting, and the plumber says, well, where do I put my geyser? Oh, you must just find a place. There have been no forethought about this. And a geyser can be 2 geysers. It can be a heat pump. It can be a solar. It needs space. So there's just no forethought. And that's irritating. It irritates me because everybody else gets a fair shake except the poor old plumber. And then we have got egg on our face as a profession when we are forced to cut away trusses. So anyway, but that's a discussion for another day. we can gripe on about it in another time.
I actually have some of those photos printed out in front of me here that you sent me about this case. And it's actually shocking to look at them, you know. It's scary. It's scary to think that this is what auditors actually come across. And I mean, doesn't this just bring back the focus on the value of audits being done and being conducted? I mean, let's call it inspection for that matter. Doesn't that just reiterate the value of audits? Yeah.
Willem, I've come across many. So one can talk about the value of audits from any perspective, from a lot of perspectives, whether it's efficiency, whether it's heat retention, whether systems function correctly, and whether they were gaining any proper heat from a solar system, which is often not the case. That aside, what about the dangerous situations like this, and the way that audits bring to light these dangerous situations? Now, bear in mind, and I know this, we're running out of time, but bear in mind that we've probably got the PRB has got about 8,000 registered plumbers at the time of this recording. So that's a very, it's not a big percentage of all the plumbers in the country, number one. And of those plumbers, not everybody issues the CSCs. And of the ones that do issue the CSC, we only pick 5% of those CSCs to audit. So when you talk percentage-wise, the audits cover a very small percentage of all installations out there, and yet we come across these situations often. And I personally have come across, probably in my, it's quite a long career as an audit, probably 13 years. But in that time, I've probably come across 1.5, maybe 2 per year, that maybe two per year, maybe even 3 per year, that have been really, really concerning, like this one. In fact, now that I think of it, 3. So what is that? 3 13s is 45, roughly 45 installations that have been really concerning. And that's a lot. Yeah. And it could have saved some injuries, some damage to property, and that's just me. So there are 40 auditors in the country, you know. So it's invaluable. It's invaluable, Willem. Yeah. Again, just referring to the risks associated with this, like this specific incident, this case, that could lead to a fatality. You know, you send an electrician up in the roof. You send somebody who installs alarm systems maybe up in the roof. He stands on those trusses, and what happens? They can't support his extra weight because it's been cut away. He falls right through. That's either severe injury or fatality, and that all because of the things that you mentioned, why this happened and how this, what
what you would have thought of why the reasons are for this happening. The architects maybe not making provision for the installation. Again, the installer himself having focused so much on the fall of the of that outlet, but not thinking in foresight of just lifting and elevating the actual geyser. But Richard, you are absolutely correct. It just reiterates the fact and the importance of organizations like the PRB, a professional body for plumbers in South Africa, and the auditors of IOPSA that do and conduct these audits, and the things that they find, to actually call back the plumbers and say, listen, this could lead to a fatality or injury. This could lead to financial loss. This could lead to damage to property. This could lead to all sorts of risk. There are all sorts of risks associated with it. And let's rather learn from this and think, let's do it this way or this way. Just, we are running out of time. We have to draw to a close for this episode. But I would love to do another case study. Like I said in my introduction, my welcoming, this was only case study part 1, Richard. And it was scary, but it was just great to then learn from this how important the auditing and the inspections that you guys as auditors do are.
Cool. Thank you, Willem.
Richard, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing this with us. And I hope that it's a little bit of an eye-opener to our installers, to the plumbers, to you who are listening to this podcast, to you that is watching this vodcast. Just think and follow the standards. The standards are clear. From myself and from Richard, that draws to a conclusion. But to our listeners and our viewers, don't go away, because we're bringing you some industry announcements just now. IOPSA will be hosting another Plumbers Evening today, the 1st of November. The event will be taking place at 26 Waterfall Avenue, Riverside Industrial Park in Nelspruit, Mpumalanga, and will start at 4 p.m. Don't miss out. Register for this event on IOPSA's website and attend the event today. The PIRB's World Toilet Day celebration is almost here. The event takes place on the 17th of November at the Sporting Hub, number 31A, Bard Road, Seltersdal Centurion. The PRB invites you to attend this fun-full day to celebrate plumbers' role in raising awareness about the need for all human beings to have access to sanitation. If you're in the Gauteng region on the 17th of November, feel free to join the PRB to celebrate World Toilet Day. In association with Ariston and the PIRB, the Scratch and Win feature on App Plumber offers you the chance to win great prizes. Stand a chance to win your share of electronic COCs to the value of 9,800 Rand, a 150-litre Axios geyser, and so much more. The higher your CPD points, the grander the prize you stand a chance to win. Download App Plumber and start playing the PIRB's CPD rewards games thereon today. Kasi to Kasi Plumbers Association will shortly be hosting an open day dialogue with speakers from different plumbing associations. This event will be hosted at the Diepkloof Hall opposite Diepkloof Square in Soweto on the 8th of November. Contact the number on the screen to reserve your space.